When we're solving equations we have an x squared equals 0, you need to write it as two things being multiplied, so then you can determine what makes each of those things equal 0. Because this expression has a constant, a c value, and an x squared value, I know that I'm going to have some number of x's plus or minus something, some number of x's plus or minus something. And I have to figure out the possible factors for 7 and 3 with the same sign that give me a negative 10 in the middle. I need to find the factors for 7 for the first and positive 3 for the last, which means same sign. That gives me a negative 10 in the middle. My OI has to be negative 10 in the FOIL process. The OI has to be negative 10. Okay, so I can either have the 7x here and the 1x here, and the 3 going with the 7 and the 1 going with the 1, or I could change the order. Let's change the order. Here I had the 3 with the 7, and down here I've got the 3 with the 1. I changed the order, realizing that the middle terms have to be the same, so I'll make them both minus. And I'm going to look for the one that when I do the outsides and the insides gives me a negative 10. Okay, outsides here is negative 7, insides is negative 3, and I found it on the first try. So those are the factors. And the only way the product multiplied of two factors could equal 0 is if one of them is 0. Letters left, numbers right, plus 3 divided by 7, plus 1 plus 1. And because these are two x's and not a point, I'm going to leave them like that. Again, my first term and my last term have to be factors of 3x squared and 5. The OI has to be a 14. So I know I have a 3x and a 1x, and either have the 5 and the 1 with different signs, or I could change the order and have the 1 and the 5 again with different signs. And I'm looking for the one that gives me a 14 in the middle. Okay, outsides, negative 3x. Insides, 5x. Yeah, that one doesn't work. Let's try this one. Outsides, insides, and that works. On a side note, if this had been a negative and this is a positive, all that means is I'd go back and change those. So again, I found the two factors that multiply to give 0. What's the only way you can multiply to get 0? One of them is 0. Plus 1 plus 1 divided by 3 divided by 3 minus 5 minus 5. Once again, when I have x squareds and a constant, I have to break it down into two binomials, and the first terms have to give you a 7x, and the last terms have to give you a 3, and the OI has to be a negative 10. Now let's look at one that doesn't have a c. There is no c value here, so I can factor out an x. Factor out means divide. I'm going to divide out an x. I know y'all say take out, but take out's Chinese food. And the only way I can multiply to get 0 is if one of them is 0. Again, notice this one didn't have an x, so I can't factor an x out of everything on that one. But this one, every term had an x, so I could factor out an x. Once again, every term has an x, so we can factor out an x. And the only way to multiply and get 0 is if one of your factors is 0. Don't forget you have two answers here. One of them is 0 and the other is 5/3.